mean, a lot of people have been comparing this loss to Usyk that Anthony Joshua suffered last weekend to his previous loss to Andy Ruiz, and to some extent there are parallels between the two. What I do think is, though, I think the Andy Ruiz loss was more humiliating, because if you take it from the perspective that he was originally supposed to fight Gerald Miller, right? And then the Gerald Miller fight fell apart. And then what happened was Andrew Ruiz was a late replacement. And a lot of UK fans saw him on a scale and they started laughing at him, saying, "Oh, look at this fat guy. How the hell is this fat guy going to beat Anthony Joshua?" And they were all getting gassed over Joshua. And then eventually what happened was, when the inevitable happened, obviously Anthony Joshua did drop him in the fight, but then when he got back up and then he dropped Joshua, then 3-4 knockdowns happened, and then Joshua got stopped on his feet. That humiliation was huge. I mean, it reverberated around the whole boxing world. Literally, you had the first Mexican heavyweight champion in Andy Ruiz, and it was a fat guy that beat this complete Adonis who's like 6'6", like with literally like muscle upon muscle, getting knocked out by this fat dude that nobody gave a prayer of beating. I mean, that literally reverberated around the world, right? But then on top of that, what I would say is, of course, it wasn't just the fact that he lost. He got completely destroyed in there. He got knocked down 3-4 times. I mean, he got stopped on his feet. It was a humiliating loss, and on top of that, this was his coming to America show. Like, this was his way to establish himself in the American scene. So when he got knocked out like that by Andrew Ruiz, the first time he got out of his comfort zone of fighting in the UK, he got completely humiliated when he came to America. I mean, if you think about fighters, like, for example, when Prince Naseem came to America, he fought Kevin Kelly, and that was an amazing fight, and he managed to knock Kevin Kelly out and managed to stop him. That's what you call coming to America and putting on a show. But when you come to America and then you get destroyed like that, and then on top of that, like, you had all the PBC fans and everyone like talking trash to Joshua, and then obviously Joshua had his rematch and he managed to beat Ruiz and got the titles back. To some extent, he did actually solidify himself as a fight that could bounce back from adversity. He made a lot of money, and then he managed to show that he could get the heavyweight titles back. And I think the Andrew Ruiz loss was more humiliating because he lost to a guy he was not supposed to lose to. I mean, this guy was a little fat guy who managed to knock him out, right? And on top of that, like, it was more humiliating to some extent. But with this one, I mean, he didn't get knocked down or anything. Usyk clearly won the fight, and not only that, he completely outclassed him. And on top of that, I think in the rematch, I mean, obviously Andrew Ruiz came back in the rematch and he was completely gone physically, let himself go and he got himself beat. But I don't think Usyk is going to do that. Usyk is a consummate professional. Usyk is a technically gifted heavyweight who's probably one of the most technically gifted heavyweights I've ever seen, cruiserweights I've ever seen. So it's a different kettle of fish here. But to some extent, the reason why I say the Ruiz loss was more humiliating and worse was because I think to some extent it's just the mental image of seeing Anthony Joshua on the canvas getting knocked about by a fat guy while he's like a 6'6" Adonis, ripped, made out of marble, chiseled heavyweight who had all the belts, and he's getting beat by a guy that a lot of heavyweights did not think that he would get beat by. So, and on top of that, it was a coming to America show as well. So from that perspective, it was pretty bad. But then again, Usyk beating Anthony Joshua in his own hometown and completely outclassing him for 12 rounds and almost stopping him in the last round, that was pretty humiliating too. So they're both humiliating, but I slightly lean towards Andrew Ruiz because that Andrew Ruiz knockout that happened over him was just not supposed to happen, and it did. So from that perspective, I think it's fair to say that that loss was way more humiliating than the Usyk one. But I think the Usyk one is going to be harder to come back from because I don't think he's beating Usyk in a rematch. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, Usyk is not going to let himself go. He's not going to let himself get gassed up about winning the title. He's already won titles in the past. Ruiz has never won a title in the past, so when he finally won it, he just the success went to his head, and he stopped training hard, and he started buying Bentleys and mansions in the hills, and he had all this money. He was set for life, and he was just chilling, and he was eating pizza, and I don't think Usyk is going to do that. So from that perspective, I mean, I can see why the Ruiz loss was more humiliating, but I think the Usyk loss is going to be harder to come back from, because I just don't see him beating him easily in the rematch. But that's just my opinion. Tell me your opinion. Tell me what you think would happen, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.